Hi everyone, welcome to this Highway Tabernacle Tech Team training on ProPresenter. In this video we're going to discuss audience looks. So what are audience looks in ProPresenter? Well, the audience looks determine which layers are going to go to which screens for any specific portion of the service. So, for example, let's talk about the worship portion of our service. What do we want to see on the various screens that we have? Let's start with the three screens in the front of the sanctuary. So during worship, we want our wide graphics to be shown across the wide screen in the front. So all three screens will be combined and we show one graphics. We also want the lyrics for the slides to show in the middle of the outside screens. Okay. On the back screen in the sanctuary, we want the singers to see the lyrics for the current slide plus at least a couple of lines for the lyrics on the next slide. So that'll be the back screen. And what do we want to see for live stream? We want to see the camera, which is controlled outside of ProPresenter, but as far as the lyrics go, we want the lyrics to show, but on the lower thirds of the screen. So we're going to talk about all of that, how to set all of that up for each portion of our service. Okay, so let's head into ProPresenter, and let me move my camera to the bottom so that you can see up here. Because up here is where we are going to set up our audience looks. This is Mr. Mustache, they call him. And I think the idea here is that this is an audience member looking at the screens, okay? So audience looks. So let's just click on this and go to Edit Looks. So this is what we see on our Edit Look screen. Let me make this just a little bigger. So what we see are each of our screens that we set up in the last video, the live stream, widescreen, center screen, and outside screens. Again, these are only audience screens. We don't see stage screens here. So the idea is which layers, so here are the different layers, which layers are going to go to which screens for each of our settings over here. We're going to create, they're called presets. So we're going to create various presets and decide which layers go to which screens. Right now, you can see that all of the screens are getting all of the layers. So that's why when I come over here to my live stream, if I come to live stream here, and I go to, let's go to this slide, I can see that the media layer is there, the slide layer is there, but if I turn on a prop, the props layer is also there. So it's hiding the media layer and so on. Okay, so back here to our Edit Looks. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the different portions of our service and decide which layers we should see on which screens. Okay, so let's start with a new preset. I'm going to click on the Add Preset button, and we'll call this Pre-Service. So this is what happens before the service actually starts, right? We're going to have our rolling announcements, and that's pretty much it, rolling announcements going on before the service starts. So let's look at each of these screens and decide which layers should go to the which screens. So at the beginning of our service, we have the rolling announcements, which is on the announcements layer, right? So do we want the messages layer to go to our live stream? And you might think no, because we're not going to send any messages to the live stream. But actually, as I mentioned at the end of the last video, we do use the messages layer, or maybe it was, sorry, I think it was in the second video, we do use the messages layer to show our countdown. Okay, so we are going to keep that because we'll need it for the countdown to go to the live stream. We don't need props, and at Highway, like I said, we use props for the center screen when we have something going on video-wise on the outside screens. So we don't need the props layer going to our live stream, ever. The announcements layer, well, this is pre-service, so yes, we want the announcements layer to go to live stream. And if the announcements layer is going, all of these other layers are going to be covered. So there's no point in sending any information to those layers. Okay? So there you go. This is the setup for pre-service for our live stream screen. What about the widescreen screen? Well, if you think about our rolling announcements in the sanctuary, we don't use any widescreen graphics at all for live stream or for announcements. So we have a center screen and our outside screens show the rolling announcements. So we don't need anything on the widescreen. So let's turn all of these checkboxes off for pre-service. Center screen, what do we need in the sanctuary on the center screen while we're showing rolling announcements? We don't need messages. We do want the prop, which will be the center graphic. And then we don't need the rolling announcements on the center screen. And we don't need anything else. We don't want to show any media. The media will be on the prop, right? We don't need to see any slides. We certainly don't need to see any video inputs. So this is all that's going to be shown on the center screen for pre-service. And then on our outside screens, it's going to match the live stream, right? We want to be able to see the countdown, so we're going to leave the messages layer there. We don't need the props layer on the outside screens. We want the rolling announcements. And because we have rolling announcements going, all of these other layers will be covered. So we'll just disable them so that none of those layers will go to the outside screens during pre-service. And there you have it. We've got our pre-service preset all set up. So let's take a look at it. I'm going to click Make Live, and you'll see up here, instead of default, it'll now change to pre-service. So I'll click Make Live. Now this says pre-service, so this is the audience look that we're using. So if I come up here to my rolling announcements, I close that dialog. If we go to rolling announcements, the live stream lobby sees those rolling announcements because it's on the announcements layer. And actually, take a look. We got props layer showing. We've got media because we haven't cleared anything. So one of the first things that we do for the announcements, for the pre-service, the very start of everything, is we do a clear all. Okay? So instead of the operator having to come in here and just click the clear all, we're going to add a clear all to our first slide. And when we get to the next video, which talks about the playlist, we're going to change that a bit, and we're going to have another slide above the announcements layer or announcement slides that will set everything up for the announcements. Okay? So we'll get there. But for now, let's just add a clear all. So right-click on this first slide, and we will add action, clear. We're not going to clear an individual layer. We're going to clear all. So we're going to clear group, clear all. And there you go. So now when I click on this slide, watch the layers over here. When I click on the slide, it clears all the layers. Now the only layer that's showing is our media layer. So the live stream has the media layer, the announcements layer. So the live stream screen shows the announcements layer. All right, what about our widescreen? That shows nothing because we're not sending anything to the widescreen. Okay, what about our outside screens? Again, we have the announcements layer going to the outside screen, so they also see these rolling announcements. And our center screen shows the prop, but it's blank. Why is that? Well, we haven't set the prop yet on these screens. We haven't told any of the screens which prop to show. Okay, so I want to use my Christmas one. So I'm going to go to my Christmas collection. Again, make sure you have the props tab selected. Go to Christmas, and let's just drag this Christmas prop up here and on to this first slide. Okay, and that's good. Now, when I click on that first slide, this center screen shows the prop. The outside screen shows the rolling announcements. And the live stream screen shows the rolling announcements. And the widescreen shows nothing, which is exactly what we want. So there we have it. Our pre-service audience look is all set up. So all the operator has to do at the beginning of the service, before the service starts, is to click on this first rolling announcement. Now, that's because this looks this way because we have pre-service selected here. Well, what if before we started pre-service, what if we were down here and we had, let's say we had, well, we don't have any other ones, but let's say we had a different audience look selected while we were rehearsing, for example. Then when we get here, it wouldn't automatically change to pre-service. So what I'd like to do is to add an action to this slide to automatically set the pre-service audience look. Okay? So we're going to right-click here on this first slide, and we're going to add an action. We're going to set the audience look to pre-service. Okay, and there's Mr. Mustache. So whenever I click this slide, this will automatically go to the pre-service audience look. Okay, now let's do one more thing with our pre-service. If you remember, when we have rolling announcements going on in the front of the sanctuary, we also want to see those on the back screen. Okay, so we need to set up our stage layout, our back screen, to use the video stage layout. Remember, we created that in the last training session. So we want the back screen to show the video stage layout. So we're going to add that as well. So let's come back into this first slide, and we will right-click and add another action. And this time we're going to add the stage. So we'll click Stage, and now it's asking us, what do you want the back screen to show? Which layout? Lyrics or video? Well, we want video, so that when we're doing rolling announcements in the front, they'll also show on the back. So there's 4 things on here now, but when I click this first slide, the live stream shows rolling announcements, center screen shows the prop, outside screens show the rolling announcements, and the back screen also shows the rolling announcements, which is what we want. Okay? Now, those of you that have been around ProPresenter with me for a while know that I do not like to see lots of icons on a slide. Okay, we can group all of these icons into one macro. And macros are down here. So what I'd like to do is eliminate all these and put them into a macro so that we can use that macro on the slide. It just makes it more organized, in my opinion. Okay, so over here in macros, we're going to add a macro. We'll call it pre-service. And notice here, the header for pre-service is green. So I'd like to change the color. So right-click on the macro, and let's change the color to match the heading. I'm going to make it green like that. Okay, so this is now going to be our pre-service macro. So what do we want to do? Let's see what we did. We came in here and we did a clear all, didn't we? Clear group, clear all. So we added clear all to this macro. And then we came in here and added, let's do the audience look. So we want the audience look to be pre-service. And then we want the stage layout. So add action stage to be video. So there it is. Now I didn't add the prop, and we don't typically add props to macros because the prop, remember, is the center screen graphic. So that can change from week to week. So I typically will leave the prop on the slide, but let's put this macro now on the slide. So just drag and drop. Now the macro is there. We can get rid of these three. So let's right click on this slide, remove actions, and we'll remove the clear all, remove actions, remove the audience look, remove actions, and remove the stage. So there you have just the prop and the macro. So when I click on it, it's going to do all the same things that we set up to do. All right, and there we have it. Our pre-service rolling announcements are set up, ready to go. All right, so let's think about our service. After the rolling announcements and the 5-minute countdown, what's next? We go directly into our worship, don't we? So let's come up here to Audience Looks, and let's edit Looks, and let's create another preset for worship. You can call it whatever you like. I think that makes sense, though. All right, so let's think about our screens. What are we sending? So during worship, we have our widescreen graphic on the front of the screens, and we have the lyrics on the outside. Okay, what do we have for live stream? We have just the lyrics going to live stream, other than the camera. And remember, the camera is taken care of someplace else, outside of ProPresenter. So we don't need to show messages during worship to the live stream screen. We don't want to see props. We don't want to see announcements anymore. We do want the slide layer, right? Because the slide layer is the lyrics for worship. So we want slide layer going there. We don't need any graphics going to the live stream because remember, the media layer is our widescreen graphic. And we don't need the video input going to the live stream because that's handled outside of ProPresenter. All right, so there's our widescreen, our live stream screen set up for worship. What about widescreen? Well, we don't need the messages layer going to the widescreen. We don't need props layer going. We don't need announcements. We don't need slides. The slides will be on the outside screens. We do want the media layer going. That's the graphic that'll be up there. And then we don't need the video input going. So just one thing going to the widescreen during worship. Okay? All right, center screen. Well, the way we have things set up at Highway, if we're using widescreen, we don't need the center screen at all. So the rule of thumb is if you're sending something to the widescreen, you don't need to send anything to the center screen. So let's turn these off. And vice versa, right? If we're not sending something to the widescreen, then we want to make sure we're sending the props to the center screen. Okay. And then the outside screens. Let's leave messages on for the outside screen because you never know when we want to send a message to someone in the congregation. We don't need props on the outside screens. We don't want the rolling announcements going out there anymore. We do want the slide layer because that's the lyrics. We want those in the center of the outside screens. We don't need the media. And we can leave the video input there. We don't typically send any video input to the outside screens. We used to, and we still can. So I'm going to leave it there, but it won't be used. There won't be anything going there. But if we send something there, it'll show. It'll show if there's no media. Okay, so that'll be our outside screens. And I like that. So a pretty simple layout, really, for our worship. So let's make this live now and take a look at what we see. So now you'll see if I make this live, up here it changes to worship. Now we need to make another change because we're looking at, let me close this, we're looking at the sample playlist for their music, and they don't have any widescreen graphics in their worship songs. So what I'd like to do is to bring in one of ours, right? Remember in the very first video, we brought in some songs. If I go up here to my default playlist, we brought in these songs. And if I look at any one of these songs, they have the widescreen graphic and then they have our lyrics. So let's bring in, we'll just bring in this one. So come up here to the default library, come down here to the Great Are You Lord song, click it and drag it onto the sample playlist. There it is. So now it's here at the bottom. So I'm going to click and drag this up to the top. Sometimes it's very slow. There we go. Okay, so it'll be the first one up here. It's the very first song now. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's go to the first slide and then the second slide. So what do we see? Here's our back screen. We're still showing the rolling announcements. In fact, if I go to my live stream, that's showing the rolling announcements too. Why? It went back to pre-service, didn't it? So let's change this back to worship. And we'll go to the first slide. And now I'm seeing rolling announcements again. And it went back to pre-service. This is happening because we told the very first slide to always change it to pre-service. Remember that? Okay, so the way we get around this, the reason we're not seeing anything, even though we have stuff selected down here, we're not seeing it on our live stream because our rolling announcements layer is still present. Okay, so one of the first things we need to do here is to clear our announcements layer so that we're no longer seeing the announcements layer. Because remember, the announcements layer is above the media layer. So that's going to show on top of whatever we're showing in the media layer. So let's create a new macro. Come down here to macros. We'll create a new one. We'll call this worship. And one of the first things I want to do is to add an action that will clear the announcement layer. So we want to clear that announcement layer. What else do we want to do? I'm going to change this color. This is light blue. So I'm going to right click here and change this to a light blue. Kind of matches, something like that. Okay, so we also want to make sure that let's add an action audience look and make sure we select the worship audience look here. Okay, we also want the back screen to show the lyrics, don't we? So let's add an action stage, and this time the back screen will get set to lyrics message. And I think that might be all that we need. So let's drag and drop this macro onto our slide. Now when I select it, notice that the announcements layer is gone. But the props layer is still here. We're using widescreen. We're not sending anything to the props layer, but it's still active, and we don't need it. So let's come back here to our worship macro and also add action clear props. So this will clear the props layer as well. And I don't need to redrag this. All I need to do is re-click on this slide, and it will clear the props layer. Okay, so there you have it. So now when we go to this screen right here, what are we seeing here? This is interesting. See if I can make that any bigger. It's showing Integrity's Alleluia music, Great Are You Lord. It's showing all of our information about the song. Why is that showing? Well, I'm glad you asked. So here's how you get rid of this. Up here, if we go to ProPresenter Settings, under General, we have this option right here to enable copyright display. That's the copyright display. So if we turn this off, then we won't see that on the first slide. Okay, so enable copyright display should be turned off, and this is turned off at Highway. All right, I don't want to share crash reports or analytics. All right, so we're done. So now if I reselect this slide, we see a blank slide, which is what we expect to see. So on our live stream, this would be just the camera showing, the people on stage. If I go to the next slide, then I will see the lyrics, but the lyrics are showing in the middle. So we'll have to fix that, because remember, on our live stream, we want the lyrics to be at the bottom. All right, so what do we see on our widescreen? We see our nice widescreen graphic. That's good. And what about center screen? Should show nothing. Outside screen should also show our lyrics, and they do. And what about the back screen? The back screen shows the current lyrics and the first couple lines. Well, as much as it can show anyway, of the next slide. And the time. All right, so there you have it. So that's our worship layer set up properly. We haven't set up the live stream though. We'll have to figure that out. In order to do this, and I guess now is a good time to show you, back here in our audience looks, if I go to edit look, the way that we change the layout of a slide for a specific screen is using this presentation, and it's done through what are called themes. Okay, so if I click on here for live stream, worship, live stream, if I click here, it's going to ask me to create a theme or to select a theme. We don't have any themes selected yet, so let's talk about themes for a minute. Themes are a way to lay out text on a slide or lay out the slide layer the way you want it to look. Okay, so in our case, we don't have any themes. If I go to theme here and click, it's going to say new theme because we don't have any set up. We can also come in here and go to the theme editor, and you'll see the first thing it does is it asks us to create a theme. Okay. So let's call this Highway. I'll just call it Highway. Save. And then this is going to take me into my theme editor. And our theme editor allows us to create themes for any specific group. All right. Now, I don't want to start from scratch. We could lay this out the way we wanted, but instead, an easier way to do it is to take a layout that we like and create a theme from it. So I'm going to select this layout right here, right-click on it, go to Themes, and select New Theme from Selection. And the new theme, we're going to leave it in Highway, and we'll save it. Yeah, we'll just write over the existing one. So here we are. Now it's Highway, and it's called Theme Slide. Now at Highway, this theme actually is a representation of the theme that Matt Maher used when he was giving his concert at Highway. So we liked that theme. So I just created it from memory based on the theme that he was showing. Okay, so I'm going to call this Matt Maher, and that's our theme. All right, so that's the theme that we use on our outside screens because it's in the middle. But we want another theme where this is lower thirds, don't we? So I'm simply going to duplicate this theme and come up here and call it Matt Maher lower thirds. I need a space. There we go. And then I'm going to, there are two elements here. There's the text box, which is the text itself, and then the box, which is the outline. I want to select them both. So I could come over here and hit Command, hold down the Command key and select text, or Control key in Windows. Or I could come up here and put my mouse somewhere outside of both things, click and drag, and it would select both of them. Okay, so that's what I want to do. I want to make sure they're both selected, and now I can simply use the arrow keys to move this down. I could also use my mouse, which might be faster, but I have found that sometimes the mouse will only select one thing as you're trying to click and drag. So I'm going to leave it like that. There it is, lower thirds. And there we have it. So now we have our center and our lower thirds. So coming back here to our audience looks, if I want back to show. So what we want to do here, if we edit looks, is for the worship live stream, we want to come up here and select the Highway Matt Maher lower thirds. Notice now that the icon changed. This tells you that you have a theme selected for that particular screen. All right, and let's make this live. So notice my live stream now is lower thirds. But if I go to my outside screens, they're in the middle. So that's how we can use a different look for a different layout for our live stream than we use for our in-person screens. Okay, and there it is. We've set up our pre-service and we've set up our worship. All right, so what comes after pre-service? Worship in our service. So after worship is what I call our welcome. Someone comes up, welcomes the everybody, and then maybe gives some announcements before we show the video announcements, okay? So we can make the video announcements part of our welcome portion of our service. So let's create that, because if I look over here, there isn't a welcome section. Okay, now in the next video, we are going to talk about how to create the playlist from scratch. But just to give you a little preview, let's create this. So I want to create a section like we have the music section here. I want to create another section above presentation called welcome. So to do that, I'm simply going to click on this plus sign and add a header. So here's the header. I can give it a name. Let's call it welcome. And if I look up here, here's my header. I can click on the gear icon and let's give it a color. Let's use red. So I'll give it this dark red. So there's my welcome. And we want the welcome to be after worship, before the message. So I just dragged and dropped it down here. Now we want to add a library item to our welcome section that will be for our announcements. Okay? So remember that anything in your playlist, anything that you're showing on a screen, comes from the library. So let's come up to our default library and add a new item. We're just going to add a blank page. So let's come up here to library, click the plus sign, and add new presentation. That's what we want, presentation. And we're going to call this welcome. And the library will be our default library. The playlist, we want to add this to our sample playlist. So let's do that. And then the theme we want to use, let's just use our Highway Matmar theme. We don't really need a theme because we're not showing anything. But there it is. There's our welcome item, and you'll see it added it down here to the bottom of the playlist. So all I need to do is drag and drop it up under welcome, and there we have it. So if I scroll up, now I have a welcome section with a slide that I can use to show whatever. All right, typically we would show our logo. So let's do that. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself because it'll be in the next video. But let's just add our welcome slide, our logo slide. So come up here to media. It's actually part of our training content. So if you select the ProPresenter training, here you will find on the third row down, Highway logo wide. So I'm simply going to drag this and drop it up here next to the blank slide. So there's our wide slide. So in our welcome section, we want to show the widescreen graphic. And then we also want to show our announcement video after that. So let's grab the announcement video and drag it and drop it on here next to this. And now we can actually get rid of this very first slide because we don't need it. So we have the welcome slide and the announcement slide. Okay, so what are we doing here? On the welcome slide, we want this to be full screen, don't we? So we need to set up our audience look for the welcome, and then we'll create another one for video announcements, okay? So let's come up here to Audience Looks, Edit Looks. I'm going to move this over so we can see these slides. All right, so I want to make sure, let's create a preset called Welcome. And this preset, let's see, what are we showing on live stream? We don't need messages, we don't need props, we don't need announcements. There is no slide layer to show, there is no media layer to show, and there is no video input. So the live stream is just going to be the camera on whomever is speaking. Okay, so that'll be live stream. We're not sending anything there. Widescreen, we don't need messages, we don't need props, we don't need announcements, we don't need the slide layer, we just need the media, this widescreen media. That's going to the widescreen. And that's it. And remember, we said if widescreen has something selected, we don't need center screen at all. And then for the outside screens, we're not showing anything out there. We're just showing this wide graphic. So this can all be turned off as well. So there you go. There's our audience look for welcome after the worship section. Okay. All right, let's create the video announcements one. So video announcements are using the center screen and the outside screens. So it's very similar to pre-service. So instead of creating a brand new one, let's just right-click on pre-service and duplicate it. And we'll drag this copy down here under welcome and rename it. Right-click, rename. We'll call this video announcements. All right, so video announcements. We don't need the messages layer going to live stream, and we certainly don't want announcements going to live stream, the announcements layer. We want the media, right? Because this video is media. So we want the media layer going to our live stream. And that's it. We don't want anything going to widescreen. In the sanctuary, we want to see the prop on the center screen. And we don't want to, well, yeah, let's leave the announcements layer, the messages layer there. We'll get rid of the announcements layer and just show the media layer on the outside screens. So the outside screens will show the video, and if we do need to show a message to someone during the video, we could do that. And there we have it. So that's our video announcements. Okay, so let's use these looks. So first of all, we're going to create a macro for each of these. The macro for this one, let's create it over here, macros, plus we'll call this welcome. What do we want to make sure of? We're coming off of our worship. So we want to make sure that the audience look is set to welcome. What do we want on the back stage, the back screen? We don't really need to see anything, I don't think. So let's just leave the back screen the way it is. We won't change it. Let's see, this is red, so I'm going to change the color here to dark red. We want to make sure that we don't have the announcements layer, but that's taken care of by the the song, the worship layer. We don't want to see any props, but again, that's taken care of by the worship layer. I think this might be all we need. So let's drag and drop this welcome. Come on here. And now we have our video. So what do we need for our video macro? Well, let's, this is announcement video. And I'll leave this dark red. It is red, and I wanted a different red than this one. So that's fine. So what are we doing? Let's make sure that we add an action to change our audience look to video announcements. Okay, we want the back screen, so we'll add an action for stage. We want the back screen to show the video so that the people on stage can see it as well. Is there anything that we need to clear? I don't think so, because the media layer will be there. I think that's pretty good. So let's drag and drop this macro onto our video announcements. And now let's see how we're doing. So we did our worship. Now we come down here and we go to the welcome slide. Outside screens show nothing. The audience look changed to welcome. The live stream shows nothing, which will be just the camera, right? The widescreen should show this big long logo, which it is. Center screen shows nothing. And the back screen shows what it did before. So that looks good. And then when we get to video announcements, this is going to play, so I'm going to let it play. So when I click on video announcements, now I'll see the announcements start.
And welcome to Highway.
Pastor Mark with a nice smile. So what do we see? Back screen, we see the video. The live stream, we see the video. The widescreen shows nothing, and it shouldn't show anything. Center screen shows nothing because we haven't added the prop. The props layer is cleared, so we need to add a prop here. So we'll do that. And then the outside screens also show the announcements. So let's come back here to our prop. We'll grab our Christmas prop and drag it onto this. And now when I select the video, and Pastor Mark will start talking. Let me deselect it, select it again. There we go.
Good morning and welcome to Highway Tabernacle.
Trying to find a good place to stop him.
My name is Pastor Mark, and
All right. Anyway, that's pretty good. All right, so now on our center screen, we see our prop. All right, so there you have it. We've set up audience looks for the different sections of our service. I'm going to turn off our media section down here so I can see down below. All right, so the last one is message. So let's set that one up. Let's go back here to edit looks. And message is going to be very similar to worship. The only difference between worship and the message is we actually use a different theme for our live stream when we show the message, when we show our Bible verses and things like that. Instead of using that Matt Maher lower, we have something different. So we're going to come in here and actually create something similar. But for now, let's duplicate this worship preset. And I'll drag it down here. and rename it to message. Okay, so live stream is going to show the slides, right? That's the Bible verses and so on. Widescreen will show that big wide graphic. Center screen will show nothing because we have something on the widescreen. And then the outside screens, those are set up correctly. So really the only difference is the theme. So we need to create a new theme for our message slides. So let's go back to our theme editor. And I'm going to duplicate this theme. So I'll right-click duplicate. So now I have a second theme, and we'll call this message. Wow. That was my keyboard, you guys. That wasn't me. Message lower thirds. Okay. So what do we want to do here? I don't want this box. I want the box to be something different. So for now, I'm going to take the text and move it out of the way just so I can deal with the box. So currently our box has a stroke, which is an outline, right? 7 pixels wide of white. We're just going to get rid of that altogether. We are going to fill it with a color, but the color is going to be like a light gray, maybe even lighter than that. I think that's what we use. And then we use black text, if I'm not mistaken. But this actually might be an image. Anyway, let's so we're going to fill it with this color. We're going to make it set the transparency down so we can see behind it. And now if I take my text and I bring it down here, I want a different font for my text. Let's just give it this one. It's not great, but I'm not sure which one we actually use, to be honest. It might even be Arial, but we'll use that. Okay, so this will be our message text. And I don't know if we normally make it black. I don't think so. We'll leave it white. Anyway, the whole point here is that you can see it's different than our map-mar lower thirds. Okay, so this is the one that's called message lower thirds. So let's go back here to our playlist. We'll come up here to video, edit looks, and this time we want to select that message lower thirds for our message audience look, our preset. All right, so I'm going to close that. So these slides don't really match how our message is laid out, but you get the idea. One thing that we do use is our widescreen graphics, right, for the message. So let's go back to media. And if I scroll down here, I will find one. This is a Wednesday is okay. So this is one of our message widescreen. So I'm going to drag and drop this right up here, like so. And I'm going to delete this slide. And just so you can see it, I'm going to delete the graphic off of this next slide. So I'm going to right click on it and go to remove action Zion.ping. That's the graphic. And I'll do this for a couple of these slides. Okay. So let's see how this looks. So well, we need to create a macro, don't we? So we create a macro for all the other ones. So let's create one for this one. It'll be message. And message is kind of yellow, so let's make this color like that, kind of. Okay. So first thing we want to do, make sure the audience look is set to message. We also want the stage to show the lyrics message so that any Bible verses will show up on the back screen. We also want to clear our prop because we're now using widescreen, right? So we want to clear the props layer. And I think that's it. So let's drag this and drop it onto this first slide. All right, so now when I click on this slide, it should take me to my message audience look. The center screen should be nothing. I don't have the props layer showing. If I go live stream, that's just going to be graphics for now. Widescreen shows my nice widescreen graphic. Center screen is nothing. Outside screens is nothing because I don't have any text. I don't have any slide layer here. Now, once I go to this screen, now our outside screens show this. And that's really not the theme that we want, but that's the theme that they've selected. In the next video, when we talk about playlist, we'll set up our theme correctly for the front screens. Let's see, widescreen we saw. The back screen shows the current slide text plus the first couple lines on the next slide. And what about our live stream? That's showing our new layout, lower third layout for this. I don't know why point 1 is up here. If I look at this slide, there's actually, if we go to edit slide, you'll see that point 1 is a different, it's not the text. It's not the standard text. This is the standard text. So point 1 is different. So we would have had to set up the lower thirds theme to look for these specific things. Okay? And we didn't, and that's okay. It's all good. We don't use this kind of layout anyway. But there you have it. That is our audience looks. That's how you set up all of our audience looks. It's pretty easy, and I hope it's intuitive. I hope it makes sense that what we're doing is we're telling each screen you can see these layers during this part of the service. That's basically it. Then you just want to make sure that for each part of the service, you make sure that you set that audience look so that those screens now will get updated with the specific information. All right. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful. In the next video, we are going to create a playlist. We're going to create our Sunday service playlist from scratch, and I'll show you how we set everything up using our training slides that we have down here. Okay, so I hope to see you there. Thanks.